Welcome to a very special edition of the DHN Crypto Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Wade Teamer. Why do I call it special? Well, 5 years, guys. 5 years ago today, set up my YouTube profile, created my little profile picture, named the channel Digit Hustle News. Ever since then, I haven't looked back, and I want to take this moment to thank you guys. I want to thank you for the years of encouraging emails, comments, messages all across social media. I want to thank you guys for the ideas that you have shared with me, the experiences that you allowed me to have. Some of you even went as far as to send me on a trip, right, to the nation's capital, which was something that I never thought I would have experienced. So for all those many things, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you guys. Genuinely. Now, let's get into this week of crypto, because things have been very exciting, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to jump right into the terminal, because there are so many stories I have to share with you. Coinbase popped off this week. Of course, Stellar popped off this week. XRP and Circle, even XDC made a headline. And at the end of this, I do want to bring up something about Hedera that I find to be a bit concerning. Is it a wrap? Is it truly a wrap? Has the community lost faith in Hedera, especially with this new direction? We're going to talk about it, guys. But let's jump into the show. Of course, all links to educational materials, tools, and resources to help you get started in the crypto space. Y'all know where to find them. Links are under this video. Now, Coinbase had their summit, Coinbase Summit 2025, and this sucker attracted some big names. They made some major announcements. The entire experience was fully on chain. This felt like a Steve Jobs moment for the crypto space. It really did. They live streamed the event on X. I watched a couple hours when I could. And guys, this is a turning point. This is truly a turning point, because not only did they attract names from the financial world, but we also got names from the world of pop culture in the realm of sports. Ladies and gentlemen, Super Bowl champion Saquon Barkley. Take a listen.
How did you decide at that moment to invest? And I was just curious, did people around you kind of say that was a dumb or crazy thing?
Yeah, I mean, people going to say, they're always going to have something to say no matter what. That's something my mom taught me, whether it's,
Big facts.
it's getting involved into new things, whether it's in football. They're always going to have something to say. But for me, I felt like it was the right time to get involved. Me and my manager, Cuz, and having conversation with Pomp and Jack, felt like that was a perfect time to do it. And I was able to get on a phone call with Michael Saylor. Back then he told me that I should take all my money and put it in. I think he's doing pretty well. I probably should listen to him. But yeah, you have people who have their opinions, but that's what I felt like was right. And I have a big thing within myself. I never want to be the smartest person in the room. And I feel like the only way you're going to grow and improve is by surrounding yourself with super smart people. And I know I have super smart people around me, and it was the right decision to make.
That's awesome.
Right decision, right time. Having the right people around you. It seems that Saquon has taken the orange pill. A lot of Bitcoiners around him. But you also have to think about it like this, folks. Some of the use cases and advancements that we talk about on our favorite DLTs and blockchains like Ripple and Stellar, those are more complex offerings as compared to Bitcoin, which can simply be marketed as a store of value. You want to save some money, you want to get interest on your cash, you can put it in Bitcoin. This is something you can do completely by yourself. That's what's driving so many people to Bitcoin. Once Bitcoin has truly penetrated pop culture long enough, and artificial intelligence continues to push forward as it does, and with stablecoins now beginning to redefine themselves to people, once those three things really lock into place, then terms like digital wallets, artificial intelligence on blockchain, DPIN, NFTs, the world of Web3, those things will then become more easier to digest because people have already become exposed to a digital asset ecosystem by storing their wealth in Bitcoin. So we got to let the phases play out. They also made this pretty big announcement here. Coinbase, Shopify. Shopify will integrate USDC as a payout method on the Base network. Now, I emphasize payout method because in other arrangements, you can use it to come into the network, but you can't use it to leave a network. That's the typical arrangement when we have payment providers getting involved with blockchain. It's more so if you're already on the chain, here's an extra Web 2 or traditional payment provider you can use. Shopify flipped it around. Now, if you run an e-commerce store on Shopify, one of the payout methods you can offer is USDC, the stablecoin. Right now, it'll be running from the Base network, Coinbase's primary chain, but that's okay because once they begin to see how good it is coming from Base, they'll begin to expand to other networks. So now that this stablecoin is recognized as a payout method by one of the largest, if not the largest e-commerce name in the business, stablecoins have entered a new era, guys. And this also showed me that the behavior is these companies, traditional companies, enterprises, businesses, they want multi-chain capability. They want multi-chain access because they're beginning to recognize that their user base is multi-chain. That is why, and we'll talk about this in a moment, the move to adopt the XRP ledger by Circle, that was a community play. It truly was. But guys, I was impressed by the scale of this event, and it definitely set the tone for the week, definitely sets the tone for this show. This is Danielle Dixon. She was on CNBC Crypto, and you guys already know what the headline is here. We'll pause that while the volume comes in. PayPal has officially contacted the New York Department of Financial Services, and pending approval, the PYUSD stablecoin will soon be allowed to run on the Stellar network. Now, 7 months ago, at Consensus 2024, I reported on the announcement made by Paxos's founder, and he said their entire suite of stablecoins would soon be making their way to the Stellar network. One of the Paxos issued stablecoins is PayPal USD. Now, only because it's on my mind, Mikkel, you said not a lot of people care about Stellar. Well, $74 billion market cap PayPal cares a lot about Stellar. But let's go to Danielle's comments. She gives us more insight on how this will be used, and then we'll unpack it further.
And use that for cross-border. We also have MoneyGram, which actually really helps them on the edge to be able to do the on and off ramping. So there's just a lot of really great use that they can see with respect to Stellar. And we're just really excited that it's going to be on chain.
And we've been tracking this evolution for a few years now of TradFi getting on board with stablecoins. But what's the view like from Stellar? Have stablecoins really clicked for traditional corporations, and has that education gap closed?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I really think this last probably 8 months, 9 months has been pretty remarkable just in terms of the industry really bringing to light all of the value of stablecoins, but really just having the United States government really understand it and really have a focus on it. You know, just even today, they've moved one of the Stablecoin Act and they're moving it to a floor vote. So all of these things happening really helps industry to say, oh, wait a minute, this is an opportunity for us to see the value of stablecoins. So it's not so much talking about like the blockchain technology. It's really saying, what are stablecoins going to do for our business? For example, like in the treasury side, you've already seen.
What are stablecoins going to do for their business? That's the key thing there. And she also brought up MoneyGram, which raised the question to me, or at least in my head, is this relationship bigger than the MoneyGram relationship? Obviously, if you look at the market cap, it is significantly bigger than the MoneyGram relationship. But we shouldn't sleep on MoneyGram. MoneyGram access is still a major play. It connects 100 million MoneyGram customers to the Stellar network. Wanted to get a for sure number, but that's still a major outlet. When it comes to this PayPal play, though, like she said, it's all about how businesses can now use stablecoins. Another headline I read this morning when I was getting ready to film for the show, Walmart, Amazon are now looking into stablecoins. So this creates a very interesting environment now that we know on June 17th, the Genius Act for stablecoins will go to its final vote in the House. And we know that there is a pretty big restriction on non-financial public companies such as Walmart, Amazon, Google, Uber, against them creating their own stablecoins and issuing their own stablecoins. That let's look at the domino effect here. Genius Act passes with that restriction in it. It will automatically force these non-financial publicly listed companies to PayPal, to Circle, and to even Coinbase. When I was mentioning for months how the public networks that support these stablecoins, they will reach a moment where they will get the recognition that they rightfully deserve. Those pieces are starting to come into place. Let me show you this as well. This is an excerpt from the article. What I love the most about this development was that they highlighted the potential of Stellar's on and off ramps. An expansion on Stellar would give PYUSD users access to its vast network of on and off ramps, providing additional access through digital wallets, very key, and connected to a local payment system and cash networks. Access to extensive Stellar infrastructure will enhance how people use PYUSD in their everyday financial activities, from payments to remittances to merchant services. So you guys got to understand here, Stellar's position is the wallet base. Think of it this way. Chime, for example, they're a financial infrastructure. They are a meta bank, but you wouldn't be able to access their services without the app. In this particular case, Stellar serves as the app gateway that allows you to use stablecoins like PayPal, USDC, EuroC, etc. That is what makes this arrangement more impactful. Because of PayPal's user base being so wide, here's how it's going to match up. People who have certain Stellar wallets or are using certain apps on Stellar and they want to do a stablecoin transaction, they now have an additional option outside of USDC to make that happen. I know of a lot of e-commerce integrations, website integrations that are already tied to PayPal. When you shop online, one of the primary payout methods is PayPal. So let's just imagine you're using a Stellar wallet to engage with an NFT platform. Thanks to Visa a few years ago, they created a system where you can use fiat stablecoins to buy NFTs directly from a marketplace. So you're on Stellar, you're interacting with the NFT marketplace, potentially light mint, you want to make a purchase, but you want to do it using money or funds you have in your PayPal account. Now that this integration is in place, you see an NFT on Lightmint, which is an NFT marketplace for Stellar. You go to make the purchase. One of the payout options appears. It's PayPal. You got PayPal USD in your PayPal account. That PayPal will read that balance, take from that balance, boom, now you have your NFT in your Stellar wallet. That's the age that we live in now, ladies and gentlemen. And with Stellar being the wallet provider, the wallet architecture, webbing, if you will, that will support the movement of these stable coins, the movement of this value between people and applications, that's massive, y'all. That's truly massive. Now, just to refresh you, remember 7 months ago, Paxos originally told us this was coming. The collaboration between Paxos and Stellar will further facilitate institutional adoption of stablecoins issued by prudentially regulated institutions. Institutional adoption of these stablecoins is a crucial component of achieving wide-scale use and utility of digital dollars. Enterprises and institutions need safe, compliant, and trustworthy tokens in order to engage with the open economy. I was beginning to feel a little bit crazy. I'm not even going to lie to you, man. I was like, whoa, when is this coming? It's been 7 months now. You're kind of making me look a little bit silly, Paxos. But it's all right. Patience is a virtue, ladies and gentlemen. That's the most beautiful thing. This points at further collaboration between Paxos. Now I'm looking forward to their gold coming to Stellar. And then this is just another look at PayPal USD's volume. $47 million in the last 24 hours. And you got the 7-day, 30-day, yearly. So when it comes to PayPal USD's stablecoin, they do need a little more help. Connecting into the massive on and off ramps for the Stellar network, I guarantee you a year from now, we'll be looking at north of $100 million. North of $100 million in 24-hour volume. 12 months time. You can bank on that. I'll bank on that. But let me show you the current list of stable coins, excluding the PYUSD, of course, still waiting on approval. But this is a snapshot of the stablecoin landscape on Stellar. USDC, 2 euro stablecoin offerings, one from Circle, the other from Societe Generale. Then I added the CAD because I remember a few years ago, a Canadian stablecoin issuer, they issued what was the VCAD stablecoin on Stellar. And when you look at their anchor directory, that stablecoin is still listed. Next to that, of course, we are familiar with Novati Payments and when they introduced the Australian dollar stablecoin to the XLM network. And then you have ZMO Trust or GMO Trust, who is providing Japanese yen-backed stablecoins on XLM. So now XLM has stablecoins back to national currencies that exist in some of the highest value markets on the planet. Pair that with the on and off ramps located in some of the highest value economic corridors on the planet. When it comes to laying a foundation for your business, because that's where we are, ladies and gentlemen, laying the foundations for our business. You can't get no more solid than that. So I look forward to the next 5 years. I look forward to 2030 and where this space truly goes. So with that, guys, it's time we take a break. When we get back, though, we're going to talk a little bit about Circle on the XRP ledger. We knew this day was coming. We did. But the question I want to ask is, now that it has happened, what's the next move? Hey guys, I got a quick message for you. Let's say you're looking to buy some crypto, like the ones mentioned in this video. Consider using our crypto exchange partner, Uphold. With Uphold, you get access to more than 200 crypto assets through its simple-to-use trading platform. Uphold has been around more than a decade, so it is a name you can trust. With over $2 billion in reserves and $44 billion in trading volume, I've yet to lose a trade on Uphold. To the more experienced investor out there, Uphold also has a line of precious metals and national currencies for more diversification. For me, I'm having fun using Uphold's baskets tool. Uphold lets us set aside a certain amount of money to invest in different sectors of crypto. With one click, you can diversify into the big three, meme coins, or the financial assets like Hedera, Stellar, and XDC. But listen, crypto assets are very volatile, and it is always best to manage your risk and do your own research before using any platform. I recommend Uphold because before I was an affiliate, I was and still am a user. So if you use the link below, it helps support the channel. I want to thank you in advance. So I tried to go back and find the exact video when I predicted this. I said it so many times, so it was a bit difficult. But we knew this day would come. As you can see, native USDC is now live on the XRP ledger, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to give you a second. Let it sink in. Get your claps out. I know a couple of other creators have touched on this, but I want to unpack it and get a deeper understanding of the potential here. Like I asked before the break, what is the next move now? Because this has raised so many questions. Me personally, I'm wondering if this is why they denied or dismissed anyone buying them, Ripple or Coinbase, because they had this plan. Would not be shocked at all if they already had this in the cards. But it's official. USDC will be making its way to the XRP ledger, and it's going to come with a number of benefits. The launch of native USDC on the XRP ledger will allow developers, institutions, and users to gain the support of the world's largest regulated stablecoin. This will include enterprise B2B payments, DeFi liquidity provisions, and financial infrastructure applications. This is my favorite part about it. This isn't USDC being adopted by the company Ripple. This is USDC Circle directly embedding the world's largest regulated stablecoin into the XRP ledger. This means that anyone who goes to build on the XRP ledger, no matter what side of the planet you live on, you can integrate USDC into any app that you're building. So when we're talking about tapping into a liquidity source, ladies and gentlemen, the XRP ledger just tapped into roughly $70 billion worth. $70 billion. And that, again, is my favorite aspect of it. So it's the developer side. So this means now that on the XRP ledger, we will begin to see similar services that we have seen be successful on networks like we just talked about, Stellar. But another very important angle that could come out of this that we talked about earlier in the week was the benefits of a stablecoin on the XRP ledger in the world of RWAs. Because one of the questions that are being raised is, how does this impact RLUSD? RLUSD was always intended to be a private offering, something Ripple would offer to its institutional clients. With Circle embedding USDC into the ledger for developers to use worldwide, USDC now becomes the people's stablecoin when it comes to interacting with the ledger. And the RLUSD becomes a private placement sort of asset. So bringing it back to the RWA league table, USDC is one of the most prominent stablecoins in the world of RWAs. Now, when we're talking other forms of stablecoin payments, like I'll show you in a moment, B2B peer-to-peer, the big green T is the one leading the charge. But in the world of RWAs, you see Ethereum, Solana, Tron, Avalanche, all of those networks primarily are moving USDC for their RWAs. So that's another reason to be excited about USDC embedding the XRP ledger with USDC, embedding USDC into the XRP ledger, because this allows for all types of building to occur. DeFi applications, gaming applications, payment applications, banking applications. Now things are starting to heat up. They just needed a powerful stablecoin ally, and they got the best one. The world's largest regulated financial stablecoin, or financial regulated stablecoin on the market. But let's get deeper into stablecoin payments by type. The two biggest would be peer-to-peer and B2B. I highlight these two, and shout out to Artemis for the data, because historically the XRP ledger has been particularly positioned for B2B payments, as well as peer-to-peer, but mostly B2B. When you bring it up in the conversation, peer-to-peer would fall more in the sellers, B2B would fall in the XRP. But you can see here, B2B makes up a large swath of stablecoin payments, especially over the last 2 years. And now that we know the Genius Act for stablecoins will be going to a vote on June 17th, I expect peer-to-peer numbers, B2B numbers, and even card numbers to increase dramatically, because now they'll have the clarity for it. So when you look at the last 12 months, Ripple is pretty much good now with the SEC. The SEC is a completely different animal because now they're getting into DeFi, and we're getting legislation around stablecoins that essentially will pave the way for US-based stablecoin issuers to thrive. By extension, US-based public networks, or DLTs, that support these stablecoins are also going to thrive. Last time I checked, XRP Ledger is also based in San Francisco. So there's that. But particularly for B2B and peer-to-peer payments, that's where the XRP Ledger will showcase its strength. And then I also want to show you this. Stablecoin volume by tokens in the Americas. I mentioned this too when we covered the stablecoin report and how it highlighted Tron. All right, we got to respect the data here. We got to respect the numbers. USDC only has roughly a 25% concentration in the United States. Adding the XRP ledger is going to dramatically change that number, especially if people begin to build with it. And that's the key here. This isn't just going to happen overnight. Obviously, looking at the market today, we know exterior forces are sometimes greater than the forces that we wield. But 12 months from now, or when we get back into favorable market conditions, when people come into the market and see all of the new USDC related products built on top of the XRP ledger, on top of the lineage and glorious history that XRP influencers is going to give them, yeah, what I am starting to observe is as we go through these market cycles, the velocity of price movements, that is what increases. This last run, at least according to the charts I'm looking at, started in 2023, and we are definitely at the tail end of it. We got a nice run, November 2024, pumped again, inauguration. Now we have just been wading in the water, as people always used to tell me. Well, we've been going back and forth here. I think the next cycle, it's going to take us a while to get to the next bull, but the next bull will be shorter than that. But the price movement, the velocity is going to be insane. I'm talking, we may settle 87,000, 90,000 for Bitcoin. But once it gets ready to run, back to, let's say, 125, 130 this time, maybe 150. It'll happen in the span of 6 months. This last cycle took about 2 years, 24 months. I don't see that happening next time. So with that, if Bitcoin is moving at that velocity, next go round with the added benefit and the added liquidity and the added volume from these USDC based applications, the velocity of XRP's next price movement will blow your mind. That's what I'm excited about. What that price will be, I'll leave that up for you guys to decide. I'll leave that up for you guys to decide. I just know I am observing, after my years in the space, each time we go into a new cycle, there is an increased velocity of price action. So if you're leaning on that, that is directly connected to the new amount of activity, applications, investment, and interest that the asset did not have the previous cycle. I'm willing to debate on that. Which brings us to the question, though. What about RLUSD? What's going to happen here? Like I said, I wouldn't put it past anyone to think that at some point this year, the conversation was had. Circle was like, what if we just bought another one? Why would we buy another one? I don't know. Maybe we need to expand. We are the largest stablecoin, regulated stablecoin. True. But what about RLUSD? You know, Ripple, we're kind of working with them. I think we have another route. That's how I feel the conversation went. So when you look into what all the early conversation was around RLUSD, the whole intention was for it to be an institutional offering, was for it to be private. This was never meant to be a publicly used stablecoin. Kudos to Uphold for offering it to their customers and giving 5% yield. But when you listen to the leadership for Ripple stablecoin department, they wanted to make RLUSD strictly a Ripple-based product. All the more reason why I said it's important that USDC decided to embed this into the ledger. They didn't establish a working relationship between Circle and Ripple. This is a relationship between builders around the world on the XRP ledger. So what do I think will happen? Not much, because that's the key. Ripple now has their own private stablecoin to be used within their own ecosystem amongst their business partners. The rest of the world, however, and future bigger names that come to the XRP ledger can make use of USDC, the largest regulated stablecoin in the world. So I think it's a win-win. I definitely do. One thing I would look out for is a potential disconnect between Ripple and the ledger now. Because keep in mind, most of Ripple's RLUSD is on Ethereum. Most of it is. If another big name comes along and builds on the XRP ledger using USDC, 5 years from now, what is it going to look like? Genuinely. Listen, guys, I pointed out to you a couple years ago, one day we'd wake up and see a headline, Ripple chooses Ethereum for this. What do we see? I ain't gonna get that deep into it. We got a lot to discuss, guys. Let's jump forward, talk a little XDC Network. They've joined forces with Curve, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking a little DeFi here. This is pretty interesting move on behalf of both of these parties. All right. I looked into the data on this and I was a bit concerned. So Curve's been around for a minute, ladies and gentlemen, going all the way back to 2020. I remember the hack in 2023. They were wrapped up in the FTX situation. They were wrapped up in the Terra Luna situation. Curve has been through it all, but they're still here, which is shocking. The relationship between Curve and XDC will see the XDC network added as an additional chain to Curve Finance's decentralized exchange offerings. So right now you can do DeFi activities on Ethereum, Avalanche, Polygon, Optimism, another chain I'm not too familiar with, and XDC is packaged up in there. So XDC would be the 13th chain that they're now working with. That's totally fine. What they give you are liquidity pool options, so you can take USDC and pair it with your XDC and get a yield on both of those assets combined. It's a bit of a complicated process, something I think definitely needs to be addressed if DeFi is going to move into the mainstream. A lot of these DeFi protocols are very, very complicated, very, very hard to use. We need to get over that in order for the everyday person to be able to open up a DeFi application, do what they want to do, hop out, go about their day. We are so far away from that point. Now, when it comes to Curve Finance, like I said, they have been through the fire. But one thing I noticed in looking at this data is they're adding the XDC network for a strategic reason. They definitely want to capitalize and add more liquidity. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them add another network after XDC in the coming months, because they need to recover. They definitely need to bounce back. After being a part of Terra Luna and FTX and then having your system hacked on its own, yeah, you got a lot of damage control to do. You got a lot of reputation management to deal with. But on the other side here, DEX volume for the XDC network, picture ain't, it ain't too good on this side either. Which brought me to the conclusion that this is a win-win for both parties. Obviously, they want to extend further into DeFi, talking about the XDC network. So they want to collaborate with a DeFi player who has experience. May not be the best, but they have experience. So I'll give them that. And XDC was recently at Philippine Blockchain Week. You know, how they do like we just talked about at the top of the show, the Coinbase Summit here, Consensus. It's an event like that they're hosting in the Philippines in the Asian market. And you can see that XDC, they're doing a presentation here. Their focus was on XDC Pay. So they're getting deeper into building out a payments infrastructure on the XDC network. Again, something that I called years ago. Well, not years. Well, about a year ago. Yeah, about a year ago now. I said the one thing that the XDC network is missing is payment infrastructure. 12 months later, look at where they stand. DeFi is a very powerful value driver to any network. And I'm starting to see a pattern where networks are integrating with existing DeFi protocols or creating their own DeFi protocols. Either way, that's a good move. And another thing to remember is that the XDC Foundation is a member of the Circle Payment Alliance. All members of the Circle Payment Alliance get to use the Circle Payment Network. Largest regulated stablecoin in the world. It truly is, man. Largest regulated stablecoin in the world. So as DeFi gets more clarity, which we know it will, thanks to the SEC, thanks to the administration here, and in other places of the world, it pretty much already has its clarity. This will be looked at as a great play. Again, they're choosing to go with an experienced partner, not necessarily the best. Real. Like, I don't know, maybe y'all need some more advisors. But then again, I also look at this as a regional play. I look at this as a regional setup because you got to keep in mind XDC, that's Asia Pacific region, Singapore, So they are going to be more prone to working with people from that side of the world. Curve Finance, they were founded out of Russia, if I'm not mistaken, Russian founder anyway. So yeah, makes sense when you look at it from that perspective. Now, at the bottom, at the end of the day, XDC and Curve, I want to see what happens. I personally don't necessarily think Curve was the best choice to make, but again, they're going with the experience. Kind of like the Cleveland Browns. But that's fine, guys. Let's jump forward. Oh, no. Okay. Yeah. DeFi protocols on the XDC network. Let's take a look at the current DeFi landscape on the XDC network. You can see XSwap here, which was the protocol that brought over USDC. Circularity Finance, they actually just announced, and it's kind of funny, the ZBAC holders, you'll get a kick out of this one. They're getting into payroll. Yep. So soon, there will be payroll applications, thanks to Circularity Finance, running on the XDC network. Multi-chain things. That's what we call them. Clearpool, Phantom, Demo, Prime Numbers, Stargate Finance. These are the names, DeFi protocols for the XDC network. The list is growing. The list is growing. So that's very good to see. That's very good to see. Like I said, though, they're leaning with the experience with this Curve move. And I truly hope that it works out for the best for both parties. But now we can jump forward and talk a little blockchain gaming, ladies and gentlemen. We had a huge title launch this week, FIFA Rivals, brought to us by Mythical Labs. They worked with Polkadot and Avalanche to make this happen. Now, we are all familiar with FIFA's previous relationship with Algorand, where their NFTs were stored on the Algorand network. And it did raise some discussion in both communities, Polkadot and Algorand, as to why the switch was made. Well, with the release of this game, we actually got a little bit more insight into why that switch was made. And I don't think it is a negative impact on Algorand at all. When you take a look at what Algorand does, the majority of it is not gaming based. It's payments, it's DeFi, it's infrastructure. So I believe we saw Algorand let FIFA go so gracefully because they recognize that as well. It is also why we don't hear much about drone racing anymore on Algorand. At least I don't. Because, and this is something else that you'll notice after you put a few years into the space, these networks, their interest and their aims evolve. It was kind of like in the beginning, I know this was very prevalent when I first got involved. Years ago, all networks did everything. Like every network was a store of value. They all could outdo Bitcoin, this, that, and the third. By the time we got to 2021, though, things began to change with the introduction of NFTs, Metaverse, RWAs, DPIN. The space began to define certain use cases. And OGs in the space, y'all remember this. I remember there was a point in time where XRP and Stellar were basically the same thing. Now the view is different. There was a point in time where Ethereum and Polygon were viewed as the same thing. Now people have a clear understanding of the differences. Same thing with Tron and a myriad of other assets that didn't necessarily get the popularity, but when you looked at the blockchain analytics, the numbers were there. The reason why FIFA made the jump from Algorand to a more Web3 focused network like Polkadot is because Polkadot and Avalanche are built for this thing. They're built for it. Another key point here, when it comes to soccer itself, ladies and gentlemen, Their thing is getting more popular. It's really getting more popular. And I believe that Mythical is trying to leverage this for sure. I hear the World Cup, FIFA World Cup, you wait for your World Cup. One of you guys will have to correct me on that. But the World Cup is coming here in 2026. And it is expected to do numbers. So many numbers that the NFL is getting ready to, come up with their own plans for the Super Bowl for 2026. So I definitely believe Mythical is tapping into that market. They're getting ready to capitalize on this. In the article, they also mentioned how in the United States, about 50 million, 50 million people, soccer fans. And that number is growing. So strategically, that is a very smart move. And in addition to that, the Adidas ad placement. Can't forget about that. Adidas related merch, NFTs, multi-year licensing agreement with Giant Sportswear brand. Multi-year. Now we're going to touch more on licensing agreements in a second when I explain to you that even in the gaming space, there are top level partnerships that you need to know about, right? That will drive value to the networks. But when it comes to Mythical's previous work, their last title was NFL Rivals. And NFL Rivals, I have it on my phone right now. It is a very fun game. Simple mechanics, graphics don't need to be they don't need to be extravagant because it's an arcade style football game. Very, very easy, very simple. But they've already racked up 7 million downloads since 2023, over 3 million in NFT sales, and 175,000 NFT holders. You don't need an NFT to play the game. But this is one of few titles that are now starting to enter the space where the value of your NFTs or how you get NFTs is based on your performance and not your pocketbook. That was the previous problem. It was a pay to play relationship. Now, NFTs in games, their value is being more associated with player performance as opposed to the pocketbook. So, as I mentioned a moment ago, it's relationships at the highest level that manifest these types of games. When you dig into Mythical, guys, and this is comments on the Algorand, we'll touch on that in a second. But when you dig into Mythical's website, you scroll all the way down to the bottom. I want to show you something that you will not see anywhere else. Officially licensed partner of the National Football League Player Association. Not just the NFL. The NFL League, the National Football League Players Association. This means that the players and the leadership within the NFL that go directly to the people are aware of this game. They are aware of this technology. They're giving their clearance for this technology. You're not seeing that anywhere else. Now, just to touch on one more time, the mechanics of why the move was made from Algorand to Avalanche and Polkadot. It appears that the digital assets, the collectibles, they're going to run on Avalanche, the Avalanche Layer 1 or the Avalanche subnet that they will be launching later this year. Again, Avalanche is proven in this department with titles like Off the Grid, Shrapnel, and others. So again, because Avalanche has the experience in this department, it was the better choice over Algorand. When it comes to where Polkadot lives, FIFA Rifles is built on the Mythos chain, a Polkadot-based gaming network that was spearheaded by Mythical Games. So to really explain the multi-chain architecture, Polkadot provides the gasoline to the engine, whereas Avalanche Layer 1, That is the chassis. That's the body of the car. And of course, the body of the car houses all of the visual features to your car. So any doors, steering wheel accessories, seat covers, rear view mirrors, decals. That's where all the cool stuff, the assets to your vehicle, will run on the Avalanche network. But the gas, the engine, the motor oil, the AC, all of those things with cars of today now, the internet capabilities, all of that will be powered by Polkadot. I still want to see, though, who's running the graphics engine for this game. If I'm not mistaken, it was Unreal. Would have to double check that. But either way, I'm starting to see more of a multi-chain setup, even in the gaming space, because these companies, these entertainment companies, they're not coming to use just one chain, because one chain by itself can't completely handle the jobs that they want to get done. So this is great for the gaming space because it's another example of how public networks can come together with mainstream IP to get problem solved, to get more Web3 centric features to gamers. That is why I like this move. And again, it don't get no more top level than being an officially licensed partner of the National Football League Players Association. It just don't. But let's wrap up, guys, and finish this out with a little bit of Hedera. I have concerns. I really do have concerns. But first, let's address the recent news. Hedera had a big day on Capitol Hill this week, featuring remarks by Bill Miller and Representative Jeff Crank, to panels with Representative Kim Young, Gabe Amo, Charles Atkins, Matt Harmon. Of course, they represent the newly founded Hedera Foundation. They explored policy, opportunity for U.S. leadership in the space, the future of AI, and DLT, which seems to be the new direction for the Hedera Foundation, as emphasized by these comments here from Lehman Baird.
The intersection of Hedera with artificial intelligence and machine learning and LLMs and all of that stuff for agents and for other purposes. And this intersection of the Web3 world with the AI world is actually critical, because both of these two halves are the future. They really are. They're changing the world independently. Their intersection is even more important.
Now, although I agree with his sentiment that the intersection of AI and blockchain, or AI and DLT, is very important, I agree with it from two different aspects. One, obviously the technology. Blockchain technology is actually what will make artificial intelligence mainstream. It will also make artificial intelligence a lot more trustworthy, especially in the case of Hedera. We know they can do something called verified compute thanks to their partner Equity Lab. NVIDIA is actually making use of verified compute as we speak to back up their language learning models. Because the thing is, when we're talking about trust, is when you go to use a certain language learning model, you run into the risk of the data that your model is sourcing from being wrong, inaccurate, false even. With verified compute on Hedera, Hedera has found a way to tailor its DLT to register those sources of information. So that way, when future language learning models go to build, they can use that data or plug Hedera into the language learning model to act as the register for the data for future use. So from the technology standpoint, 100% I'm with it. It makes a bunch of sense. And then the second layer is socially. Like I said, people won't be able to trust AI without the blockchain verification for it. So when he mentions an intersection, yeah, AI and DLT are at an intersection, but they still have yet to cross the expanse that is pop culture. Some people are familiar with AI. Companies like Gemini, Meta, they're doing a good job by introducing it into social media platforms, mobile devices, things of that nature. Apple too, but I hear they're having issues with their AI. But they're doing a good job by getting people ready. Once it hits a tipping point and AI applications are everywhere, it's at scale, and people are starting to see what's wrong with it, that's when blockchain will become a much needed commodity. That's when applications like Hedera's verified compute will become a high value commodity, because this AI stuff has gotten completely out of hand. We can't tell. Here's what I fear when it comes to AI. Is one day we will see a video of a person saying something that that person in real life did not or would not ever say. But once the video hits Twitter, it's a wrap. Everybody's reposting, everybody's sharing, everybody's commenting, and the market is tanking 10 to 15%. That's my biggest fear. Verified compute would address that. Now, to get to the other side of this, though, because when I look at Hedera getting involved with Capitol Hill, talking to policymakers, leadership within the government, it calls back a conversation that was had. I call it a conversation now because when I went back to find this article, you guys remember this story, Hedera recognized by U.S. government for role in human rights. This is when Hedera was brought into the Democratic, it was something Democratic technology policy to promote something of that nature, right? Simply though, when I went back to look for the story, the State Department had removed it. I immediately began to think that, okay, this was 2023, Biden administration. A lot of stuff has gotten removed since then. That was my immediate thought. But to still see them getting involved with these players is obviously a good sign. My concern truly lies in this new direction for Hedera, because, and I'm pretty sure many of you in the community will agree, what direction is it? Where are y'all going? Because if it's AI, I believe that is too far of a stretch. Yes, AI is all over the place. And yes, you provided verified compute, which is a gold mine when it comes to securing and verifying AI applications. But that's still years in the future, when you already had supply chain applications that are ready to hit the market now. What happened to the relationship between USDC and Hedera? USDC is all over the map. Hedera should be right next to it. On top of that, what about the DePIN applications that were being developed with Neuron out in the UK, as well as Atma.io, Avery Dennison, Mondelez International, SKUX? There were so many other directions that Hedera could have taken that they're not, that concerns me. So this new era for Hedera is being driven by whom? That is the biggest question. That is also my concern about Hedera. When I posted the story of the new governing council member, Arrow Electronics, and the reaction that I got from you guys showed me, that the sentiment has definitely changed. So I had to dig a little bit and try to figure out what exactly was going on. Hedera still has the same problems with marketing. There isn't any. They still have the same problem with proper leadership. Yes, Mance and Lehman are geniuses, but it appears to me that they aren't as equipped at running a company as others in this space are. Let me show you some data to give you an idea of what I'm talking about here. This is total value locked on Hedera going back to 2023. It's been quite a roller coaster ride, that's for sure. Lots of ups and downs in the market, lots of major announcements, big tokenization partners, things like that. But you can see ever since the start of the year, pretty much on the back end of the presidential rally, total value locked on Hedera is dwindling quite significantly, right? And then another number here, core developers. Thanks to Token Terminal, I'm getting exposed to new key performance indicators for our blockchain networks, and it is changing the way I look at a lot of the assets that we have followed for years. We're all entitled to a change in opinion when new information presents itself. This information right here concerns me. Hedera started the year with 92 core developers. As of June of this year, they got 28. My question is, what went wrong, or what is currently going wrong where you can't keep core development? I looked at another network, Stellar. Their numbers have actually increased when it comes to core developers. They're standing at 58 right now. So I would be a lot more comfortable with a network with at least 58 core developers as opposed to a network with a dwindling amount of core developers sitting at 28 people right now. You look at some of the other networks in the space. Algorand, for example, core developers up in the 60s to the 70s. Ethereum, 200 to 300, obviously. Solana, 100, 150. Tron, 100 and 150. This core developer metric, ladies and gentlemen, has to be directly correlated with the rate of adoption or the rate of applications, new applications that hit the market or hit a particular network. If Hedera is having problems keeping core developers, how much more can we expect to come from the network in the coming months? It all lends back to the leadership problem, the direction problem, and the marketing problem. They can't market Hedera properly because no one can put Hedera on a concrete path. We started as an enterprise network. Now it's a deep end network, or now it's artificial intelligence. For a minute, it was RWAs. To that point, all of the RWA offerings that Archax said that they were going to bring to Hedera, as of today, the only ones that are on record are on the XRP ledger and XDC. I wonder if the core developer thing was a problem. So, guys, like I said, I'm just a bit concerned about Hedera. Looking at the metrics, especially those provided by Token Terminal, DeFi Llama, those metrics have me concerned. And now, with events going on around the world, the market is going to have even more sell pressure. Assets like Hedera are not going to do too well. They're just not. And I'm speaking from years of watching assets fall up and down the market cap, while other assets have sustained their positions in the market cap or increased their position after a couple of cycles. We have reached that point in the space where we can start to tell the difference. The ones that stay in the top 25, them the ones that you want to keep your eyes on. So, with that, guys, don't forget to download the educational material. Links will be in the description as well as the pinned comment. Outside of that, another way to support the channel, check out one of our affiliate partners. With prices going low, this is the best time to get into the market and get a position. I got all the tools and resources you need. And then, of course, if you want to look fly for the summertime, rock some DHN crypto gear in the off season, we have merch. And any purchase through our affiliate partners or of the educational downloads, you guys know I'm appreciate eternally. Now, I do want to just put this out here for those who have made it to this far. I'm gonna let you know we are going to slow down the pace of content. I may do one full show like this one a week, because I'm gonna tell you, bear market conditions for us independent content creators is tough. So I'm doing the best thing that I can to manage the workload as well as the work-life balance. We are in summer vacation, so that means I got 2 small, hyperactive, energetic children at the crib now. So I gotta balance it. So with that, guys, again, I want to thank you for 5 amazing years. I look forward to 5 more. And y'all know what time it is. If that money is digital, so is the hustle.